and we greatly appreciate that. This is an award-winning career tech center, home to 23 career and technical programs. We're very proud of it. Each year, the state of Michigan gives out a Best in Practice award to one career tech center, and I'm proud to say, in the last 3 years, our career tech center has won that award twice. So we're very proud of the effort, what goes on there. And I'll talk about career and technical education in a little bit. Our general education team goes out and coaches teachers throughout the region. Professional development, new standards, they go out and within the core curriculum areas, they coach and teach and work with and developing our teachers. And lastly, we have business services that we provide for 8 school districts right now, top to bottom. And we perform business services as well as technology services for 2 districts. If a local district needs us, we're there. I ask you to go to, you can Google TBA ISD. We have a comprehensive website. I didn't make copies today, I apologize for that, but you can find out everything. So the funding of intermediate school districts come from the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And all of us, 2.93 mils when you look at general, career tech, and special education. And we greatly appreciate that support. We're blessed to have a region that takes pride in supporting our efforts. 1994 was a huge year in education. The goal of Proposal A, passed by voters in our state, was to reduce local property taxes, and it accomplished that. Many districts, they were responsible for their own educational system. Could be paying 10 up to 20 mills. And it reduced it down for homestead owners to 6 mills. It increased the sales tax 2%. And that sales tax is 48% of state funding for local districts. Our ISD is funded much differently than our local school districts. They receive a per pupil foundation allowance. We do not. Okay, it's very important. And Proposal A is still with us, and it's created great strengths, relief for taxpayers, but it's also created great challenges. And I'll talk about that a little bit. And a lot of debate goes on at the local, regional, and state level regarding, is Proposal A working? And depending on who you talk to, you'll get a different response. You'll get a different response. Okay, next slide. Henrietta very nicely talked about some reforms, and I'd like to briefly talk about how our world has changed a little bit in education. John Cherry was the lieutenant governor under the Granholm administration. And he came out in 2004 with a detailed report on how we need to improve our educational system in Michigan, and we must double the number of college graduates in our state. That was the basis of that report. That we have a problem, there'll be over 200,000 openings, and we need bachelor or higher degreed folks to fill those positions. Talk about a swing, okay? Because now, under another administration, we're hearing an emphasis on career and technical education. That you don't necessarily need a college degree. There are jobs in the skilled trades waiting for folks right now. And there's an emphasis right now on our world of career and technical education. And that's interesting how that has changed in the last 10 years. In 2011, the Michigan Merit Curriculum was passed. When I went to high school up in the UP, the requirement at the state level was 1 semester of government or civics. That was the only requirement by the state. And now in 2011, they passed the Michigan Merit Curriculum requiring 18 credits to graduate from a state public school, including 4 in math, 4 credits in math, 4 in language arts, 3 in social studies, and 3 in science. So that created some challenge. I supported that reform, and I think it's done some great things. Wow, 2011, PA 101, 102, and 103 impacted education greatly. Mostly the relationship between boards, administration, and teachers. The Public Employment Relations Act governs much of the world surrounding teacher certification and teacher issues. And in 2011, Public Act 101 through 103 created prohibited subjects of bargaining. It impacted tenure. It increased the amount of years that probationary teachers needed to successfully teach to get tenure. It required year-end, every year evaluations. Most of the evaluations for tenured teachers were every 3 years across the state of Michigan. Now it's every year, which I support, but I also understand that this is a challenge on our principals. A lot of time to do it right. And when you're dealing with disciplinary issues, extracurricular issues, evaluations, being a principal right now is very challenging. My hat and respect is out for them. So the prohibited subjects, teacher reduction, recall, discharge, no longer based on tenure, years of service. It's based on performance. So when you're dealing with those three issues, you refer back to the evaluation. I support that. High stakes evaluation right now. Just like many of you, you're in the business world. It's based on performance. Our children deserve performance. Transparency reporting, you can go to any school district, public school district, including our ISD. On the web page, the front page, is a dot that says transparency report. You click on that, you can find out every financial information available for the school district. And that came into play 3 years ago. Right to work or freedom to work, wherever your position might be on that. Signed by the governor in 2012. And what basically that did was, prior to the right to work passage, school districts could payroll deduct, and they were required to, automatically for union members. So it would come right out of their paycheck. If they didn't do that, then they were to be released from the organization. The right to work legislation took that away. We are no longer allowed to payroll deduct, and organized labor needs to go out and get that check or credit card from membership. So that came into play and has impacted collective bargaining, because they followed that with Public Act 54. And this happened to TVA ISD. We were negotiating with our professional union, which is 230 people, for 18 months. Very difficult process. Our contract expired June 30th of 2013. Public Act 54 says that when the contract expires, union members do not get an increase, there's no retroactive pay, and we cannot adjust health insurance contributions. So that's high stakes collective bargaining. And it was very challenging for us this last round. When you topple all the reforms into PA 54, and it took us 18 months, and I'm just so fortunate that we ratified in August of this year a 3-year contract. It was very painful. People I've known for years. It just was a painful process. EpiPens. Okay, I was at a meeting, and you mentioned the homecoming queen, and we were just so humbled by that. But our daughter, Madison, has a very serious allergy to peanuts. And someone downstate was saying, what's this EpiPen stuff? Here they go with another unfunded mandate. Here they go requiring something that we shouldn't be doing. And I stood up and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Our daughter smells a peanut, and she's in trouble. So this is good stuff. And this requires now, starting this year, that if you have more than 10 staff members, which most schools do, you have to have 2 EpiPens on site and 2 staff members trained. Support that. Makes sense. And lastly, school security. Every day we go to work as a father, hoping our children are safe. Every day we go to work hoping and praying that will be safe, because you know what's occurred nationally and the tragedies that have been out there. We've done everything we can to increase school security, putting in cameras, locking all the doors, going through procedures and protocols. And right now, new legislation came out, which I support, requiring more drills, fire, tornado, armed intruder. And we have to post on our website the date and time of those drills. I don't know if I agree with that. To pre-plan so everyone can see when we're doing a drill. We've had some debate over that. So we've had a lot of focus on school security. That is our number one priority. Plain and simple, is keeping our students safe. Plain and simple. That's the priority. Okay, what's on the horizon down there in Lansing? We're heading into lame duck. Do you know that in 2013, 47% of the educational reform bills were passed in 5 days of lame duck? So here we go. What can we see on the horizon? Early warning system. Districts that are financially in trouble, there will be legislation passed that will have specific procedures for them to get out of that deficit. That's coming. Sinking fund reform. Right now, if local districts, because of Proposal A, it took away the possibility for our local districts to create millage, but they can go into a sinking fund. But technology is not included in that. And right now there's discussion to include technology to provide relief to the general fund for local districts. And they're having discussion on that. Third grade reading and retention. You talked about your soapbox. Okay, I'm not going to get on mine regarding this issue, but the research is very clear. John Hattie's research. Retention doesn't work. Holding a child back, if they can't read successfully in third grade, goes against every grain of professional research that I've ever read. And right now they'll be discussing again. We were able to defeat this idea the last round, and it will come back. Very interesting topic. Very interesting, but we have to rely on the research. And then colors to letters. Right now, to determine if a school is succeeding in a variety of factors, we have green, yellow, blue, and red. Okay? And there will be legislation brought out again that there's a lot of citizens that want to see A through F. Okay? Because the color system is very confusing. And there might be more. So let's talk about the federal-state relationship real quick. 2001, obviously, No Child Left Behind. This was created at the federal level to do two things. To decrease achievement gaps in subgroups. Those in poverty. Jim Roulette is here, very passionate about that. African Americans, Hispanics, and other subgroups, we have a large gap in our country. The second area, it was to decrease the achievement gap from the United States compared to 39 other countries. Because we're 24th, and that's not acceptable. And so that's what No Child Left Behind. And a great deal of accountability came to us from the federal government. And then we also brought in standards and outcomes. And every state was required to have grade level content expectations. And we had not been there before. The Common Core State Standards, we started in 2009. This was from the National Governors Association, and all of the state superintendents from the country met to say we need to have a Common Core curriculum for the country. Because right now, if you're comparing Texas to Michigan, within No Child Left Behind, they have a different state assessment than we do. They have different cut scores than we do. So it's not an apples to apples comparison state to state. And how can we see best practice in the country without a Common Core? So we spent 4 years aligning throughout the state, throughout our region, to the Common Core. Getting ready for the Smarter Balanced Assessment which was supposed to be the statewide assessment, the national assessment this spring. But in Lansing, they put a stop on that and told us you need another year to rebid that, because there are some who believe ACT Inspire should be the statewide assessment. We were preparing, our curriculum is aligned and has been for 4 years for the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that we are actually teaching a curriculum right now, and we don't know what the assessment is going to be this spring. Makes no sense professionally. Very disappointing, very disappointing. Other informational topics, and I'll breeze through these. Some issues that I was just thinking that you might be interested in. In the last 5 years, this 5-county region has lost on average 380 students each year. We used to have up to 25,000 students. We're now below 24,000. That could be a combination of moving out of the region. I'm a Leelanau County resident. How many new families are moving in? Not as many as used to be. So it's a combination of moving out, and honestly, families aren't that big anymore. That's a demographic too. So we're looking at declining enrollment. But when you're dealing with Proposal A, and every student is worth $7,400, when a district like one in this county that used to be 1,100 students when I was the principal at another district, and now they're down to 500. 600 students times $7,400, do the math, and you see the challenge. I do want to add the people of that district and all of the districts, but they have great pride, and you know that, and they're trying their very best. But that's a demographic that's real. Increase of options. Michigan leads the country in charter schools. Leads the country. So we're seeing even more cry for more charters. And I believe we have enough choice in this country, in this state. That is my own opinion, and my opinion only. But I believe there's a lot of choice. Because when you look at schools of choice in our region, students and families are free to go to whatever public school they'd like to attend. We have an open enrollment policy signed by all of the school districts. At any time, students and families can leave District A, and if District B has room, can accept them. That's a choice. And many children and parents opt for that. Deficit districts, that's real. There's 50 in the state of Michigan right now, and there's one in this region, in this county, that is on the radar, expected to be a deficit district next year, and we're concerned about that. So obviously with the funding mechanism, that begs into the question of Proposal A. Is it working? Proposal A wanted to create equity between lower funded districts and higher funded districts. Some say it worked. I would say it didn't. 9 of our 16 K-12 districts are base funded districts. Okay? Some districts receive $7,400. Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, $12,000. From the state of Michigan. I would say that's inequity. We have inequity in this county. The reality is, in this county, you have one district at Sutton's Bay that is base funded. The reality is, Glen Lake is out of formula. They rely on their 18 mills of non-homestead. And they get federal impact aid because of the national park. Leland has a higher base fund, and they get federal impact aid as well. And Northport is out of formula, relying on their 18 mills of non-homestead. So we knew the perfect storm was coming. We saw this years ago. And this county is a statewide example of the differences in funding. And I've used it at the state level. And It's something we need to look at. Early childhood is something we, everybody in this county and our region is very, very passionate about. We can do better. We've got a lot of good things going on in early childhood. But this is the key, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure 100% of our children are ready for kindergarten. And it's very complicated. But we need to get this right. Help our parents. So 100% of our children are ready. Because right now the reality is 6 in 10 region-wide are ready. That's 40% that come to our doors not ready. And that's unacceptable. And career and technical education in Michigan, I think I talked about that a little bit. It's swinging back. This is the mantra. This is where it should be. The governor promotes it. He will be touring our Career Tech Center this fall. He speaks about our Career Tech Center everywhere he goes. The story, our welding students went down for a Career Tech showcase. A student from Mansalona created a brook trout, sculpted it, welded it together, it's about this big, and the governor walks by, and he gave it to him. The governor came back and sat down and talked to this young man for 15 minutes. And the young man talked about the math, talked about welding, talked about how he loves career and technical education. And since that point in time, I'm a firm believer that governor is sold on career and technical education. And he talks about our Career Tech Center. In fact, he was in Traverse City for a Rotary, and his office called me and asked me to be the governor's guest at his table, and I got to sit with the First Lady, and he talked in front of the Rotarians about our Career Tech Center. So we're really proud about that. But like all of our programs, it's never good enough. All right, we're going to get into some data. But before I get into some regional and county-wide data, do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Michael, you have another valued program, which is the Migrant Education Program.
That's
correct. Can you tell us
correct.
something about that?
That's correct. We took this over as an intermediate school district 2 years ago, and that's for 12 counties. And it is not only during the school year, but it's during the summer as well. And what we do is we hire recruiters that go out into the orchards, into the homes, and register children to be in our programs. And it's a very successful program, one that is an asset for this 12-county area. Yes?
You mentioned some per pupil funding amounts, and you quoted some numbers from an area in southeast Michigan. You said that the average, or that about 7,200 in this area. If you would give the number, please, for Glen Lake and also for Northport, per pupil.
Well, that's a very good question because they are out of formula.
I understand.
All right. And if you looked at Glen Lake, I don't have the exact numbers for both school districts, but if you looked at Glen Lake, I would venture to say they are just about $8,800. If you looked at Northport with 150 students, Chris?
About 180.
180, and the non-homestead that they collect, it's over $20,000.
Thank you.
Okay? Yes, Mary?
Mike, have you noticed a change in the amount of pressure coming from outside public schools to expand the idea of privatizing education in this country and its impact on funding for schools?
In terms of privatization, I think it's more of the charter movement, Mary.
Okay.
I think there's real strong support in this state by various groups with a lot of funds to try and increase the number of charters that we have, and we have over 200 in this state. And there's a real strong push with financial support behind it to increase the number of charters. And my position, once again, is I believe we have enough choice.
Senate Bill 618 provides that there will be unlimited caps on charter schools by the end of this year.
Correct.
Wow.
That's correct. Yes.
You mentioned, or you stated that early childhood is the key to ensure 100% kids ready for kindergarten. What are the current options, maybe in priority, being discussed to better fund 0 to 3?
Boy, we just had a meeting yesterday, our Great Start Collaborative, which is 5 counties, and I'm honored to co-chair that. And we talked about, first of all, that 0 to 3 Head Start funding, okay? That has been diminished a little bit. We do receive some Great Start Collaborative funding that goes for programming, primarily for parents. But I will tell you that for 4-year-olds, the state supports us in a great way, and that's called the Great Start Readiness Program. That funding has increased dramatically in the last 2 years. I will tell you, 5 years ago, for that opportunity for at-risk 4-year-olds, we had 15 classrooms 4 years ago. Today, we have 55 classrooms serving 1,200 4-year-olds. It was 500 4-year-olds 4 years ago. So there's opportunity there for 4-year-olds, but we're trying to have the discussion, can we expand that down to 3-year-olds? And through our Great Start Collaborative, we're trying to do everything we can to create a stronger early childhood network called 5 to 1 is the initiative, to help 0 to 5, 0 to 8, but that 0 to 3 is key. And primarily right now, an emphasis is on parent education. But accessibility to quality preschool and early childhood programs is a challenge for some of our parents. And that's heartbreaking. Okay, let me move through BAME. What is BAME? This is our assessment, how we find out if our kindergartners are ready. And we've been doing this for a few years now. We do this and go out to kindergarten roundups. Last year we assessed 1,150 students coming into our kindergarten system. It's 50 questions appropriate for that grade level, and you either get a score of a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 and 2 are ready. 3 would indicate not ready. So here's the proof in the pudding. We go to the next slide, we'll show how did we do. Now remember, if you look, 1 and 2 are very good. And so you'll see the blue would be Glen Lake. And I think this is not ready, this category here. So blue is Glen Lake, red is Northport, gray is Sutton's Bay, and Leland is the gold. So you would see that Glen Lake has the lowest number of students not ready. Then Leland would have the next lowest, then Northport and Sutton's Bay. And it indicates there that Sutton's Bay in 2010, 7 and 10 were not ready. And then this year it goes 6 of 10, and then just up above 6, not ready. So that's our early childhood assessment. We were the first region in the state to start doing a region-wide assessment to determine kindergarten readiness. And so that's our indicator. And as I mentioned, as a region, it's 4 and 10, not ready. 5 years ago, that number was 6 and 10. So our early childhood efforts are paying off, but it's still unacceptable, okay? We need to get to 100%. Okay, next slide. The ACT, how many of you took the ACT? Remember that? I didn't do so well. But this is the college readiness assessment nationally. And it's a curriculum and standard-based tool that determines readiness for college and career. So let's see how we did on the ACT. I know this is hard to read, and I apologize. This is broken down by the intermediate school district as a whole as the blue. And Leelanau County is the yellow or the gold. And the state is the red. And we have 3 years worth of data points for you. So you can see here in reading the region and the county above the state. Okay. okay, in reading proficiency for those 11th graders. Science, you can see once again, we're above